I thought I would record a video about workflow because lately I've been booked by clients to do some coaching and mentoring. Mentoring seems to be picking up these days. A lot of people are coming to me for mentoring. And what I noticed is always the same kind of concern or questions that they have, which is they want to improve. They feel they're reaching a plateau of what they can do on their own, and they want to reach out to someone with experience to get better. And the comment that I hear a lot is YouTube has its limits. Like people follow tutorials on YouTube, and sometimes they feel that people are explaining some concepts, but they don't dive in. And sometimes they feel that people are making explanation about some techniques, but the genre is not really fitting what they have in their mind. And of course, we all know that YouTube is information that goes one way, which is from the person to the person that watches, of course, right? And so when you work with a mentor, someone like me or someone else, one of the things that we bring that tutorials don't bring, which is the knowledge of yourself. And I think, like when you work with someone, the main thing that this person should do first is to help you know yourself and know what you do, like what's your routine, what is your workflow, what are your strengths, what do you like to do in general. There's so many things in music that sometimes we get a bit lost, and eventually we find that when we do one thing, we lose track of time. And that's usually what we like doing. And I find that a coach, someone that does his job properly, helps you identify your strength and your flaws. And what I see as really important is, yes, you can get better at your flaws, but I think it's important that you get better in your strengths, which is kind of like, not everyone will tell you that, but we want to turn someone that has like really good skills in one category, and we want to bring this person to the best version of himself. Because and this is there's a Japanese word for that, which is the ikigai, which is like you get really good at something and the community needs it from you, and then you can eventually make money out of it. So if I turn someone that is really good at sound designing to a master level and a best version of like what's possible, this person will not only be doing something that he loves doing or they love doing, and it's also something that they do really well. And eventually maybe some people will need sound designer for some gigs, and they will come to that person to get him and to work for him. And I think in my case, that was my ikigai, was to realize that I have a natural talent for mastering and mixing that I didn't even know I had. And I basically learned from myself. And also I had mentors that helped me by answering questions. And I reverse engineer what the mentor did with me. And I also, because I have a basis in therapy, where I was a therapist in a past life, I noticed that the time invested into knowing the client and to make sure the client knows himself sometimes was left on the side. And this is the part that I find is the most important for the reason I just said. So what also is important is when I work with mentoring, one thing that I realize is there's no YouTube video to explain what is a good workflow in music making. And what I mean by workflow is not just how you work, but the period of before a session and the period after the session of you in the studio, And also your, what I call your work hygiene, is something that is global. And the path of the artist or the path of the musician, sadly or thankfully, I'm not sure if it's a good or bad thing, but it's something that is with you all the time. So people that come to me, sometimes they have a day job and they think about making music all the time, and they don't know what to do with that. And their mindset is that, oh, I need to eventually quit my job so I can do music all the time. And that might not be the right thing to do. And the reason is, if you leave your job, this is where you get money from, and this is where you get support in difficult times. This won't be there if you do music. Like, if you do music full time, it's very difficult to get a sustainable scenario where you're going to have enough money to live. It takes a long time. So this is why you need to develop your ikigai and your workflow. Because if you work on understanding what works well for you in your workflow, then you have the perfect condition to develop yourself. And what I mean by workflow is, when you go to a music studio, your music studio, or maybe your studio is in your bedroom, you need to prepare yourself. You need to be in the right condition for making music. And some people will be like, just take a beer and then sit down. Yeah, that will work for a while. But that's a teenager version of a workflow. I even say it's a childish version. And down the road, a lot of people like depend on drugs and alcohol to go in the studio and feel like, okay, now that I'm a little bit high, now that I'm a little bit drunk, I can make music. It's like I said, it works, but it's not the best version of yourself. Like, do you think that an athlete that works for Cirque du Soleil or for a circus or for the Olympics, do you think they get a little bit high and a little bit drunk to get the best performance of themselves? No, of course not. Then you'll say, I mean, but that's not creative. That's Olympic. That's sports. Honestly, I think making music is a gym for the brain. It's tiring. It's demanding, and it's a muscles. Your creativity is a muscle. You don't build creativity with drugs. You don't. Yes, it's fun, and that's why we party. But when we get in the studio, it's also important to get the best out of your muscle, and that means sometimes to be a little bit more serious. And this is not an anti-drug and anti-alcohol rant or whatsoever, but I would say that 100% of the time that I work with people and I tweak their workflow with them, and they put aside this this way of going to the studio and be a bit high, in that the results are tremendously positive. And I'm going to be honest, I like to have a puff of weed and make dub. There's something quite fun in it. But that's not the essence of my work. That's not the core of my work. That's the hobby. That's the fun part. But I can have fun making dub and preparing something really, really exciting. And then later on, I party and I play with it. And then you get the best of both worlds. But the party part, that's not a workflow. That's just fun. And workflow involves the word work. And yes, there can be fun in work, but work also implies structure, understanding of your limits, understanding of your boundaries, and organization. And in the workflow, I like to see how people work, and I like to tweak. So one of the things that I teach people is to have a non-linear way of working and to think about making music in a modular way. I'm not talking about modular synths. I'm talking about modulating your time you spend on finding ideas, how to deconstruct ideas, how to come up with the best loop possible, how to understand a genre, how to understand melodies, reverse engineering music you love, and making structures. All those are bubbles or modules or parts of music production. And it's very difficult to be good at everything. But if you take it one by one, at one point you develop a system for making beats, a system for making hooks, a system for making structure. And once you have your systems, then they all work for you. They all generate content for you, and they work hand in hand with you. And after your session, then you complete your workflow by organizing what you did, which means organizing the leftovers, organizing future project, organizing your future projects, saving macros, and saving presets. And then, you have this ecosystem of success. And success to me is when you feel free, but mostly when you come out of the studio and you feel happy. This is success. And I think I've said it multiple times already. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful. And I haven't do much video vlogging lately, but I will try to do a little bit more. And I love comments and ideas of people. If you want to suggest ideas, you can reach our group on Patreon and also on Facebook. And I'll put some links down there.